Hello and welcome to another Blab, a digital marketing insights blab. I am Ellen Williams, CEO and co-founder of B2B R&D, always joined by my partner, Craig Yoris, the COO and co-founder of B2B R&D. And today we tried to pick a topic, although there's not a lot of room on the title line for Blab, calling it Above the Noise. And we're really what differentiates you. So let's chat a little bit about above the noise, cut through the noise. Which do you prefer, Craig?
I actually prefer the above the noise versus cut through. I think it sort of engenders a more spiritual way to sort of rise above what other people are doing. Cutting through or breaking through, in my mind, it's a little bit harsher, I think.
Interesting.
That's just my 2 cents on the vernacular, if you will. And I know before we started, you mentioned you had an opinion on this, so I'm sort of sitting here waiting with bated breath.
So I see it a little differently, although I really like what you said. Typically, if you're in a room that's really noisy, how do you get above the noise? You actually have to be louder. And with everything getting thrown at us via all different avenues of digital marketing, I said the last thing I sort of want is something louder. So I'd rather have someone cut through the noise because it's something I'm looking for. I mean, if you picture yourself in a crowded room and you sort of cut through everyone to find that person you're looking for, that you want to talk to or that you want to hear from. So I sort of look at it in that perspective. I'd rather sort of cut through it all, get everyone off to the side because you want to hear what I have to say.
Very interesting. See, and I like that take on it a little bit, going along the spiritual side, a little bit of the Moses sort of parting the, you did the hand movements. So that's why, you were a bit in that regard. I like that. I do, but it still hits me as cutting through means, and like you said, I want to be heard. And you're right. What we're trying to do is be heard. And I think to rise above the noise, we're not screaming louder, we're speaking differently, maybe. And so people will pay attention.
So the noise being everyone saying the same thing and rising above it being someone with a new idea, so to speak.
It could be, or it could just be saying it differently. It doesn't even have to be a new idea. I do find, and we read a lot, obviously, but not just in order to prepare research. We read more than just that. We're reading books on the topics. And I feel like over the last, I've been involved in this as long as you have. And it gets to the point where people begin to say the same thing, not even differently. So to sort of take the ideas out there and craft them into a way that maybe will make people think a little bit differently, that's what can bring you above the noise. And I think that happens in almost every industry. Kim, my wife, reads a lot of books on mindfulness, and a lot of the stuff begins to say the same thing. And occasionally a book or two will resonate the way they said it, which is what brings them above.
For the individual.
Yes.
It's something that makes sense, something that connects. And so we're talking about differentiating yourself amongst the crowd, not necessarily with something new and revolutionary, but with the approach being one that certainly the people you're trying to reach will learn from and will want to hear more from you because of your approach to things.
Absolutely. And I think that's what it is, really.
And I think even with what we started the conversation with, the perception or the way in which we saw the simple words above the noise to me, it was not as inviting as the sentence was to you. And yet, cut through the noise, I prefer, and you didn't. So, I mean, again, not a new concept, right? Somehow getting
Yep.
you to be heard besides everyone else, but the way in which you're communicating. I think what allows people to get above or cut through the noise is just that, the understanding of the perception of the people that they're trying to reach. And if you can identify those people and then listen, as which is really important in marketing anyway, but you start to listen and understand their terminology and the way they're communicating, then you won't be part of the noise, because you'll be able to communicate in a way that resonates with them.
Yes.
I mean, that's the first step, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it is about resonating with the people you're trying to resonate with. And you won't, those of you watching, resonate with everyone. You can't. And I think to try and do that hampers and hinders people's growth. I was reading something, and products can't be marketed. Your audience can't be everyone. Now, I've said it before in a past life that my market's really every small business, and it's not. It can't be. There's nothing unique about that. Our market for B2B R&D is not everyone. It's specific. So we have to work on rising above the other pundits in our industry and resonate with those who are our market.
Okay, so step number one, right? Understand who your market is.
Yes.
Step number two, understand the way in which they're speaking, communicating, so that your terminology is going to make sense.
Yes.
Okay, now,
Uh-oh.
how do you deliver that? So when we take the bigger picture of noise, right? It's all the bombardment that we get all the time, from email to pop-up to advertising to commercials to radio, where there's a lot of literal noise. And now video, right? Video being extremely popular and growing in popularity daily with different platforms for video. It's not just what am I reading and what's being thrown at me. It's literally what am I hearing as well, especially with your ever favorite autoplay. So what kind of tactics can people really bring to the table? I've got my audience, I've got my message, but how do I get them to hear me when there's such a crowd of people trying to get their attention too?
Well, I'm going to hold off that, because there was a comment on the side, if I could.
Oh, really? I can't even see them.
Oh, see?
Okay, good. Go for it.
And James had said, welcome, James. He has to disagree. Maybe on social media it's that way, but direct to consumer, there are so many tools like Facebook interest and demographic targeting. You're appealing directly to your consumer. And the answer to, I look at that and say, yes, you're right. But you may think they're your consumer, but they may not be your consumer. So you have to sort of know how to resonate with the exact people. I love, I'm a fan of Facebook, and especially their targeting, and it gets much more specific. But the best bet when it comes to Facebook targeting is to take your email list, people who opted in and signed up, and use that as a Facebook ad targeting method, because those are people that you really want to talk to. Just because I'm the right age or demographic for your product doesn't mean I'm your customer. And I think that's a sort of something that marketers need to realize and business owners need to realize. It's not about the age and the demographic anymore. And I think we've written about this, Ellen, several times. It's about the personalization to that individual that's going to get them to know, like, and trust you. So I agree. I think there's lots of tools there. With Facebook, you can target, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter. But to target just in general as to age and demographic is not going to, it's not going to be the be all and end all in my mind.
And to add to that, even with the tools available so that you are targeting much easier and finding the right people for your business, the hurdle still becomes the 100 or 1,000 or thousands of other businesses targeting that same audience.
Right.
And so it's great that you're able to get in front of them. So without a doubt, the tools that allow you to target will, allow you to spend your money wisely, but you still have to be able to, be not part of the noise, not part of all the other ads. Yep. So, maybe you've got less noise to deal with when you're more specific like that, but you still need to have that connection and that differentiator. I mean, if and Craig, to your point, an email list, I mean, I'm on countless email lists, as I'm sure many other people are as well. And a lot of times when they come in, I have to say a lot of times, but not every time, depending on, what's going on in my day, something that I signed up for, it's delete, 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 delete. So even though I'm your audience, and even though I've actually opted in and said, yeah, send me this stuff, you're not being seen. Right. So it's crucial as far as all the noise everyone's getting, whether it's the perfect target or even someone who's said yes, that you're resonating to the point that I'm going to have interest in hearing you, listening to you, clicking on it, building the relationship. It's a two-way street. And unfortunately, as marketers, we sort of have to start that going down that road in order to gather steam.
Now, James had also said, you can use retargeting the checkout confirmation page or your sales page, which could be better options. And I completely agree, because there are people that took an overt action that said, okay, maybe I am interested, but I dropped off. I get emails all the time from Best Buy because I leave things in my cart because they do a click here to see, you can only see the price in your cart. And if the price isn't what I want it to be, I won't buy it. So, and I just leave it there. So I'm, retargeting me for that item probably is a good idea if the price hits the right price point. For a service business, though, I think it's a little harder. The retargeting, I don't know if I didn't buy, there's probably a reason, and there's a good chance I won't buy. And you and I, Ellen, have talked, I believe, on Blab early on, or in some other one of our conversations about retargeting. You were searching for, wedding dresses, mother of the bride dresses, and you were getting retargeted for weeks and weeks and weeks after even the event occurred. So I think that retargeting, when done improperly, could be more a hindrance than a help.
I think the value of retargeting and what you're saying, and I apologize for having sort of a blank screen here on the right-hand side. If you're already talking about retargeting, then you sort of made it through the noise, right? So you were heard because there's an action that got someone all the way to the website and potentially all the way to a cart, with the conversation that you just had. So that's great. That's definitely the option of retargeting can keep people engaged, can be a, hey, reminder, this was in your cart. They don't know why you left it in your cart. Right. You could have walked away. Certainly leaving something in the cart versus just poking around are two different levels of connection. So I think retargeting, as you said, when done correctly, and I think there's still experiments going on around how to do it really well. I think it can be extremely valuable. Getting through all the noise to get people to that point in the first place is what's going to be a little more difficult. But once you've started to get them to have some level of very specific action in response to what you are doing or saying, then yeah, that goes down a whole nother path. right? Because now there I'm more apt to, although I don't look at ads frequently, I'm more apt to look at an ad of the shirt I was just looking at on the site that I was just at. I was like, oh yeah, I was thinking about that shirt. And more so than an ad that's targeted to me but isn't retargeted to me. So I don't necessarily, you're not going to make that first sale through an ad, but you might make that a retargeted sale through for me personally.
Sure, absolutely. And I agree, James, that getting through the noise comes down to the unique angle of an ad or a post. But it's not just that unique angle, it's that right audience. I think it all comes down to talking to people when they want to be talked to, in the manner they want to be talked to and dealt with. Personalization seems to be, the theme that I'm harping on.
Well, and it is, and it's a trend, and it's a big trend this year. It's certainly been talked about in the realm of email marketing for many years because you can personalize those emails, and it's a permission-based medium anyway. But with the tools available now, there's almost no excuse for not personalizing.
I agree.
And as the MarTech industry becomes, talk about noise, becomes bombarded with companies that have these huge databases and identity information and your CRM and your marketing automation and all this stuff out there. You can collect so much information above and beyond even some of the demographic stuff you can do advertising, so that you really should have a personalized message, which is, I think, the best way to not be part of the noise.
I agree completely. It's really, I think, not just the best way, but it may, in the coming months, be the only way. That if that email, there's a company that does this sort of retargeting, we'll call it, very well. It's a web company. They sell courses, and I'm on their list, and their emails are always very conversational. They're always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know you're at this, depending on where you are. If it's an early morning thing, I'm drinking this. What are you drinking? Very personal. And when you visit a link, their site through a link in their email, usually within about an hour or two, you're going to get an email. Now, I know it's automated. We all know it's automated. But it's almost not automated when you read it. It's, I saw you checking out XYZ. We know you've already purchased PDQ. It's a great combination. Let me know what I can do to allay your fears about buying it. Reply to this email and we can talk about it. Give me very personal. They're outlining what I've purchased, how they interact together. And it's the, let me know what I could do, or let me know why it wasn't right for you so we can make it better. I think that's to me, that's retargeting. Now, I don't tend to purchase from that, but I do respond to them and say, hey, I didn't buy it because I thought the price was way too high for the value you're giving. I thought it was redundant with what I had already purchased, whatever it is. And it's just, it opens up a conversation with me, the customer, and them, the company, which is something I think a lot of people aren't doing well.
That sounds like a really great example of automation,
Yes.
Whether it's marketing automation, sales automation, retargeting, whatever label we want to put on it. It's a company that clearly thought through different scenarios and how they wanted to react to them in order to be not part of the noise. They really did find a way to be personal with someone that they have enough information about to include that in the conversation, but automate the conversation to the point where they got you to reply. Now, you obviously not being automated, you reply, and I'm interested if did you get a reply back, and did you feel that one was automated, or now you starting to get a conversation with somebody there?
No, the reply could not have been automated. It had to be, and although the original email is automated, The secondary conversations are not. They're actual, the responses couldn't be automated. I don't think the company would have we're not talking IBM's Watson computer here. This is strictly the first email came from I'm going to,
right. It was scheduled and created and anticipated some, take this piece and that piece and make an email out of it.
Yep. But the other, subsequent conversations are not automated. They're actually with the person, which is, it's great.
That's
on
a differentiator.
Well, you say that, it absolutely is. And
I'm not kidding.
Think about the automated DMs. Talk about marketing automation. We had, we talked about that, or you talked about that on the Morning Sip the other day. It's that kind of thing shouldn't necessarily be automated, because I think it opens up the conversation. But I think if their response to me was, that's great that you said that without saying what I said,
or something like, thanks for your feedback, we'll take that into consideration, something that would sound more vanilla or generic.
Right. They would never get another response from me.
Right.
I mean, they just wouldn't. I may still buy from them because I like what they do, but I wouldn't respond to their emails. Right. Because I know they're not. Listen, I don't care if you write, thank you for the response, I appreciate it, we always try, whatever. At least it was a person.
Yeah. Yeah. So from trying to get outside of the noise, as much as we've already talked about the tools and the demographics and all that, I think as valuable as they are, it really is a combination. So the tools can only get you so far, right? So I can target you, you can opt in, I can email you, you can come to my site, and retargeting, all this stuff happens. But what eventually the differentiator, and when you start talking about personalization and being personal, and we also want to talk about building loyalty. When you trust someone because they actually replied to your email, right, because they asked you for something, you did it, and they heard you, and now you feel like you matter to them.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. And in fact, as I think about it, one of those, I replied to his emails quite frequently. And one of my replies was, I really thought the price was a little bit high for what it was. His reply, what would have been a good value for you? And I told him. He then offered me the course for that price. And it was, I did lowball a little bit. I'm like, hey, it should be $20. He offered it to me for that price. And at that point, I felt like I had no choice. So at one of those instances, I had purchased it because that was human. It was somebody they know I had purchased before. They want to, work with you, you mentioned customer loyalty. Tell me that doesn't build customer loyalty. I know I can't do that every time.
No.
But.
And neither can they.
Right.
But so let me ask you now, with this level of a relationship that's been developed, I assume you're on their mailing list.
Oh, yes.
Does their email get through the noise of your inbox?
Every time. I may not read it when it's sent immediately, but that email doesn't leave the inbox until it's been read. Even if it's been skimmed, maybe it's the subject just doesn't hit me that week, because that happens. It gets read, it gets skimmed. Some of them get filed, some of them just get tossed afterwards, but they always get read. Yes.
So
they're above.
So nothing earth-shattering here, that developing relationships get you through the noise.
Yeah, no, it's I can't say that, wow, didn't see that coming.
Right.
It's all about, but it goes back to personalization. It's the personalization that gets you to the relationship, that gets you above, through, over, whatever the noise is. Yes, absolutely. I think it's the most important part of a marketing strategy.
So, having said that, what does it take to develop a marketing strategy? How much time and effort goes into it? Is there a boilerplate? Is there everyone does this, we should be doing this? Or is this really a, mastermind? We need to think, 101 angles and directions, especially when there are tools like automation and demographics and things like that. Is it we think we know, let's just do it? Is experimenting okay?
I think experimenting is important. I prefer the phraseology of testing rather than experimenting. But like James says here on the side, it's because I have a previous relationship that they're through the noise. But what about before that relationship, when it's in the starting stages?
Exactly.
It's those personalized, just because we have that relationship now, you can ask for information to personalize email a bit. Name and location maybe, so you can personalize depending on your product or service. Where I signed up and what page on your website I signed up. Those tools are available. Do I, take the effort? Do I also follow you on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn? Are we connected? So there are ways for companies, and there are services that automate this data gathering. So it is possible to build up that personalization to make the relationship stronger before even a sale.
Right. And you made a good point. You're talking about people signing up for email, coming to your website, somewhere where you have ownership of the property and you can gather that stuff.
Yeah.
But you can definitely start all this on social media, and it doesn't necessarily have to be advertising. No. Developing those relationships is, following, connecting, sharing, commenting, sort of be present in the everyday, online movements of the people that you're trying to develop a relationship with. And you and I both look at that as, two different options. One being people that you believe would be great prospects and customers, clients, and other relationships would be tremendous partners, referral sources, and things of that nature. So you can start that ahead of time by really the same thing we were saying earlier, by understanding the way in which people speak about their careers and utilizing that terminology in your communications with them will allow them to see you as someone who understands them versus, I had a conversation with I'll throw myself under the bus here. I had a conversation with someone a few weeks ago who's an IT guy, through and through Microsoft IT. All his services are, managed services. And we were talking about marketing, and I started talking about marketing automation and workflows and this and that and the other, and he just was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I had to back up and say, okay, let me explain, this process and these tools. And he didn't necessarily get the whole picture. Like if he had talked to me about server stuff, neither would I. So in order to really communicate what I wanted to communicate with him, I needed to realize my terminology is not going to resonate with them. Now, if I have, and we do, and most businesses do, have multiple personas, buyer personas, customer personas, or, different types of people in which you would want to sell to, like you said, all small businesses. Well, maybe not, but maybe 3 or 4 different categories. You may have to speak differently to each one, right? And you and I are even, constantly sort of updating our content to be reaching the appropriate audiences. And the only way we really fine tune that is by going out and talking to people. And okay, I said this today and I got sort of the blank stare. I said this yesterday and people resonated better with it. I'm going to try something a little different. I'll test something a little different tomorrow to see what, how I can explain my business in terminology that, that resonates with them. We just lost you.
Me?
Yeah. I don't
Oh
see
no.
you. I don't see your video anymore. Just to let you know. Um, but so we're at the bottom of the hour, and we're going to be going for another 30 minutes. And it looks like Craig's coming back. And we host these every week at noon Eastern on Friday. B2B R&D does research for marketers, and so we're always interested in having marketers contribute and come on board. Anyone here want to jump in, please do so and contribute to the conversation and change the course of the conversation. It's digital marketing insights. We don't necessarily need to stick around on the noise.
Am I back?
You are. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Or, I mean, are there questions on the side? Anyone interested in continuing this line of conversation?
I'm just going to, James had, said a couple things, and that would probably explain why I couldn't reply to him by text, because it wasn't allowing me to. I obviously wasn't here. He had said he finds it easier when people are an authority in their business. And I was going to say, I agree, but it sometimes depends on who's defining authority. People I think are an authority and that I really, look up to, you may not think are. So it's authority, I think, is an interesting topic of an interesting word, if you will. And James also said he finds it when you're starting testing, find that when you are starting testing, it's crucial to take what's working for your competitor and trying that as well. And yeah, I totally agree. Why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. Certainly digital everything has allowed us to get sort of that inside scoop on what our competitors are doing and what seems to be working for them. Mm-hmm. So certainly that's an option to try what your competitors are doing. One way to not be part of the noise would be to maybe look outside of your industry and see what other industries are doing and what you might be able to model. So it may not work exactly the same way, but maybe their tone or their frequency or their location or the length of the videos or something like that you can sort of say, I think that would work with these minor modifications for what resonates with my industry. So potentially differentiating, you can get ideas from places that are, they say think outside of the box, which doesn't, which is a very overused phrase and doesn't really explain how to do anything. But really, if you or allow yourself to say, okay, this is my industry, this is how we've always done it, this is how my competitors are doing it, and then look past and say, okay, I'm a restaurant, but I'm going to go see what a sports organization is doing, or I'm a service, industry provider, some sort of service, and I'm going to go look what my local department store is doing, just to get a different look and feel for what could be modeled. To be different than the rest of the noise.
There was actually research either probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was before the Super Bowl, that said companies, if they really want to be successful within the realm of social media, they need to see what the sports teams are doing.
Yeah.
Because the sports teams, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, doesn't matter. They're at the forefront of using some of these tools to engage their audiences because their audiences are already pretty passionate. So what they're doing is something that you should be translating to your business, regardless of industry.
Yeah, I remember reading all that stuff too. I think it's a gray area. I don't think it's an all or nothing. You're talking about an industry that already has fans.
Yes.
You're talking about, organizations that already have people clamoring for what they are saying and doing. And if you're relatively new if your business is just sort of launching, you don't have that yet. And, jumping in with some of those strategies may not make sense.
It may not.
But one of the things I wanted to get back to, you said the word authority, and I'm going to assume the context was decision maker. So someone who could actually say yes to buying the product or service that's being advertised or marketed, that you want to get to that person with authority to basically take out the, I was going to say checkbook, but I might say, Apple Pay, something to take out the cell phone to make the payment. But interestingly enough, depending on what you're selling and the size of if it's a B2B, the size of the business that you're selling to, getting the buy-in maybe halfway up to the person with authority could be an even better strategy, because then you'll have someone in-house, as the referrer or the cheerleader for your product or service, as opposed to going straight to the person with authority, who then probably in a good company would sort of send it down the chain to see if what you're selling is relevant and appropriate to the person who would most likely be using it.
Absolutely. I took authority to mean people similar to us as authorities on digital marketing. But, I totally...
That's a bit self-serving. I took authority to mean us.
But, in other words, us. Yeah, exactly. Sort of, the authority on digital marketing, so that way it's easier to build a relationship with potential customers, because they look at us and say, oh, okay, they know what they're talking about, or whoever it is.
So that's interesting, and it really is then back to your comment, how you define authority.
Right. That's why.
Is the author, the guy who writes the book, they the authority. And you and I recently had a situation where we were offered a free Kindle version of a book that, the title was right, the pitch around the book was right, and we really expected to be learning something that we could put into practice. And then quickly found that it was just rehashing of things that not that we already knew, but that's been out there for a long time. And in some cases sort of went against what the typical right way to do things. In fact, one of the reviews we read from someone else who had read the book was they felt that the advice was almost suggesting, the root of spam.
Right.
And again, that becomes perception and all that sort of stuff. But so authority, if we're talking sales, I think authority is the person who can say yes to pay for it. Mm-hmm. But you're right. If we're talking strategies, then the authorities are the people supposedly who know what they're doing. And the best advice I can give about that is get a lot of opinions, because just one person, there is no one expert out there, and there's also not the one way to do it.
No, that goes back. We had posted a blog a while ago, the answer to all your marketing questions, it depends, because it does. There is no one answer, because there's no one conversation. And it just, all of these experts bring, and that's how you have to rise above. You have to give and resonate with people on ideas that are different than everybody else. I mean, we read a lot, and you could see how many publications are saying the same things just by the number of links we put in some of our summary content, because so many people are saying the same thing.
Right.
And it does.
And there's also best practices.
Yes.
I mean, there are best practices around things, but that doesn't mean you need to use all of them.
Right.
And the best practices sometimes revolve around industries themselves. So what works for one industry doesn't necessarily work for another.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there shouldn't be a boilerplate. There shouldn't be a standard from top to bottom, anything. Every strategy, every tool, every message, email, all of that really needs to revolve around very unique, and back to the word personalization, right? Back to very personal, the business that's developing it and the people they're trying to reach.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
All right. Are there any other questions, comments?
No, I have nothing on the side.
All right. Anything else you want to tackle today?
Well, I'm still sitting here and thinking about our morning sip today was about video, and I'm combining that with the idea of personalization. And in my own head, as that we're actually talking about a way to sort of rise above the noise. And I'm wondering, I agree with you. We've been saying it's the year of video now for years, but I do think 2016 is the year that video is really going to leapfrog other medium, mainly because of tools like Blab and Periscope and Meerkat and Vine and Facebook Live and Instagram. And now Instagram, as of today or yesterday, is going to show people how many people are watching their videos, not just likes. So it's actual metrics that mean something. It's not just because it's very easy to double tap on Instagram and says, I like it, but to actually watch the video is much more important. And it gives brands that ability to now personalize their Instagram content. Hey, 30 people watched this video, one person watched this one. Let's do more content on this type. And that is personalization. It may not be one-to-one, but it's still a form of personalization. And video today allows us to speak to that one person.
So I agree. We've been talking for years about video, and it's inevitable this year. If your business isn't using video, you're definitely going to be seen as sort of behind the curve, because
Right.
everyone's there now. So I'm curious now. Over the last year, there were definitely several platforms that came out, including Blab and Periscope and Meerkat. Do you think that this is the year of the video because there are more tools available to people to create them? Or do you think because there are more tools, people are more willing to consume? Because rather than having to go to YouTube, if I have Periscope, not only can I create one, but I can watch others, right? And so we've had the statistics on today's Blab show 38 people have sort of come in and out, yet you and I, the only two who are on this video. So the tools that allow people to create them are also the tools that are allowing people to consume them. So do you think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy?
It very well may be. And I think the answer to both of the questions you asked is yes. I think that there's more video because there's more tools. And I think that there's more consumption of video because there's more video because there's more tools. But these tools are making it easier for everybody. YouTube required some effort. So I have to record the video. I then have to upload it to YouTube. I have to add some text to it because SEO is important, and we talked about that last week. So there's lots of things that have to happen. Now, we're on Blab now. We've been blabbing now for weeks, months, actually. And it's every week. It enables people to come and go as they please. It's mobile. They can watch it. I did a live Blab a few weeks ago from a location in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I was able to be there and on Blab with my phone at the same time. So it's just exploding the ability to create and give people the ability to do it. They're going to do it. Yes, and I think consumers and business people are more forgiving of less than high quality video nowadays. Mm-hmm. I notice, as I'm talking, my mouth and words aren't necessarily synced up. I don't know if it's on my end only. I keep watching my internet speeds to make sure they're good, but we're forgiving of that. People will still watch the video.
Yeah.
Because the information is there. I want the information. I don't care so much anymore that you're wearing a t-shirt, somebody. Not you, I'm not saying you. I've watched plenty of videos with people I consider experts in t-shirts, and it's the information, it's not the person. although it's the person a little bit, because that's what brought me in, the relationship. But it's the information that keeps me watching.
But I think the video, now I'm getting feedback. But I think the video, regardless of whether it's synchronized and regardless of what people are wearing, puts the person, you know, and the body language and the facial expressions and the emotion behind the sound, you know, I think it more personalizes
it does.
you know, the whole interaction, whether or not you have a pre-existing relationship. I mean, I've certainly dropped into blabs where I didn't know anyone, but the topic, you know, was interesting to me, and the visual that went along with the advice was definitely part of the overall experience. And again, if it's not quite synchronized, it bugs me a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can still see, you know, the physical, the emotion that goes with what's being said.
I agree. And it's being able to sort of look people in the eye that enables you to, you know, get that relationship. You see they're human. They're not, I don't know, they're not robots. They're not just in it, you know, for the dollar. They're in it for something more because they're looking at you. They're talking to you. I know that sounds so silly, but, you know, it's like, wow, they're talking to me.
But it also, I think, shows the level of knowledge and passion they have for a topic, because you can write a blog post and you can, you know, labor over that and write it for weeks and have people help you and edit it, and it's beautiful, but it's not anything like what your writing style looked like on the first draft. And even audio, you know, you and I had, you know, experimented or tested audio months ago, and you know, you just you keep recording until you get the sound bite the way you want it. When you do at least the live streaming video, and there are, you know, produced videos, our morning sip is more of a production, so we get it right. But the live streaming video really does, you know, when people have to be in some ways off the cuff, if you're reacting to people on the posts on the right hand side versus you know, preset questions that some of the blabs they come with. It's an interview and there's an anticipation, like going to a panel. You know, the questions are preset, but when you open it up to conversation, I think that's where video really, you know, really allows you to have that personalization, to have your thought leadership, your expertise, whatever buzzword you want to put it with that, you know, shine. You know, I mean, even if you're like a Blog Talk Radio, there's an element of that, but even at that point, you don't know what kind of documentation I have around my desk, or somebody sitting next to me, and, you know, the whole Cyrano thing going on, right? Feeding me the answers, where, you know, being able to sit in front of a video camera for an hour and just have something, you know, to say, you know, the audience will decide the level of value. But being able to converse, I think, is part of the interest in video.
Absolutely. And to take it even further, we don't sometimes, you know, we never know the questions that are going to come up on the right side. And I sometimes don't know the questions that you're going to ask me or I'm going to ask you. So it enables us to pivot quickly, to think on our feet. And you can see that. And sometimes you can even see the smoke coming out of the ears, you know, as the brain is working. And it enables you to really form a relationship with somebody without really knowing them. You don't even have to jump on in video, but it's sort of, you know, it forms that relationship, I think.
Well, definitely, you know, you at least have the I like them, the I don't like them.
Right.
You know, I don't know if it actually goes to the whole relationship, but it's that first step. You know, are they real? You know, so if we're talking about Blab specifically, I'm always intrigued by the scenario going on in the video. Some people, you know, have these huge microphones.
Yes.
you know, and you know, because what they do, radio shows, they've been doing blog talk radio, they've been doing, you know, podcasts. So they set up a studio, and now all they do is throw a webcam in, and they're good to go. And that's very cool. You know, I'm wearing a headset. You know, we've tried a couple different things. Right, I tried mine that looked like that. It didn't work. Even back here, you know, this isn't a wall. This is a screen. There's a room that goes about another 15 feet behind me. I happen to sit facing the wall, and over time I decided that wasn't what I wanted to have happen. Right. You're obviously in an office, so it's appropriate. So it always is interesting to me how you know, the different people present themselves. And like you said, it's some people are in t-shirts. You know, at one of our first blabs, we had someone join us who was in their kitchen, and they were eating. It
was lunch.
Yeah, and then the dog barked, and it was, you know, and
the person actually got up to cook while we were
right. So there's that element of sort of, you know, seeing into the world of that person. But there's also the other side of, you know, that didn't matter, and so from a video standpoint, I think. Exploring, I won't even say experimenting or testing, but exploring all those options, and that specifically could allow you to differentiate yourself from the rest of the noise.
You're absolutely right. There's no question. I've been toying with it. I know, you know, we have our morning sips, which are much more produced, if you will. But I have been toying with the ability to use Facebook Live a bit. Haven't posted any because I don't feel it's there where I want it to be. But
okay, what do you mean by that? The platform or the information?
Neither of those things. The deliverable, the deliverer. So the issue is me, not the platform, not the content. The issue is me looking at the video afterwards saying, it's not the image I want to portray.
So how's that different from here? Because you and I are far from perfect on these blabs.
I'm sorry?
Okay, I'll tell you, I'm far from perfect on these blabs. I mean, I just stumbled over the word differentiate like twice.
No, you know what? I think it's a portion of the way it looks. In the background, the way it looks, you know, the way I'm holding the phone, it's that aspect as opposed to, you know, although I will say, and we've managed to do this almost every time, I won't wear this shirt on Blab again because I notice, you know, it's a check shirt and I don't like the way it's, you know, looking. So I won't ever wear this one again. But it's those kind of things.
I'm just the opposite, and I take a lot of time because it's Valentine's Day. I wore a heart necklace.
I did notice that. I noticed that. I was going to compliment you on it. I really like that.
Well, thank you. But so interesting point now about video, because it is still, a lot of it is in the testing. So we said it's important to do it, but you don't necessarily have to have the production studio to do it, especially when a lot of the platforms are on a smartphone.
Right.
But how do you get past that? I can't post this. I don't look right. I can't post this. I didn't say so. You know, how do you jump into video when you may be so, you know, critical of your own work?
I think, and I can say this because this is strictly, I used to, when I was teaching classes at Hofstra, I used to say, this is one of those do as I say, not as I do instances. You just have to do it and trust your audience. And I do, but the issues, those issues are mine. They're not to content because, you know, like I said, brilliant, you know, authority, but the issues are mine. And we as a video generation have to get over them. We do. We have to just say, you know what, people are forgiving. People are not judging. Look, I don't go to Blabs and judge people on what they're wearing. I certainly, the person you're talking about who was eating, I don't judge her because she was eating.
That was funny.
Yeah, we don't make judgments upon that, I don't think, anymore. I'd like to think that. actually. I think I have a rosy view sometimes.
There you go. So if we bring this all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, which is, cutting through, rising above, just differentiating from everyone else making noise. What you just said about video was that you want to trust your audience, but you need to make sure that what you're doing is seen by your audience and doesn't get caught up in the noise. So in the end, I think it's just being genuine.
Yes.
Right? Not necessarily perfect, and certainly, hopefully, something of value, but bringing something unique to the table, and everyone can, because everyone is.
Right. Absolutely.
As long as you don't try to fit the mold, and that's what's going to set you apart.
I agree, and I think which is good that the molds are being broken. It's it's people like us that are breaking the molds. The big brands, they can't break the mold. They have to talk to legal and find out what happens if the mold chips, and who's to blame if it breaks completely. So it's the experts, the authorities that are going to break these molds and sort of welcome in everyone else, I think. And that's why we do this. That's why look, when we started this, we basically said, throw caution to the wind. We're going to do Blab. It's a new format. Let's do it. And you're right. We're not perfect on these. We make mistakes. We will sometimes say something and then realize that what we said was completely not what we thought. We trip over words, but it's the authenticity. It's the genuineness. I know, authenticity has been a word around for many years with social media. And I think it's so much more important today with video.
I agree. I totally agree. So being able to rise above or cut through, we won't have that conversation again. The noise is, it's a myriad of things that need to have happen in order to do it. But I think certainly taking advantage of some of the, the popular tools, especially video, is going to help tremendously, because of all the elements we talked about with video, that it's important to be out there, that it can be, everything from raw video to, live, semi-produced, to fine-tuned and totally produced with, no mistakes. But it really comes down to what you uniquely bring to the table and how that is portrayed. In almost everything you do on social media. I mean, you need to do the same in text and content on social media as well. But video definitely ups the game there.
It does. I agree. It puts you really front and center.
Yep.
Totally.
So I want to thank everyone who joined us today.
Yeah, thank you.
We host this every week. We are the co-founders of B2B R&D. The website is b2brand.com, and we offer research and resources for digital marketing professionals at a monthly subscription. So check us out. It's 30 days free, and you can search and tag and get all the great information and data we've accumulated over the last almost year now.
Yep.
And I am Ellen Williams, CEO and co-founder, joined always by...
And I am Craig Yaris, COO and co-founder, and we thank you for coming.
Yeah, and hopefully we will see you next week.
There you go.